Hey, Liberty North AP Psych. This is Mr. Davis. It is Wednesday, April 15th, and this is the afternoon live stream on YouTube. Just a reminder that we started chapter 18 yesterday, and we're going to be on chapter 18 today, Thursday, and then the following Monday. And then we'll move on to our last unit, which will be abnormal psych and psych treatments. So again, your chapter 15 assignments are due by Friday. So again, if you check on Canvas there, you have your chapter 15 lab with your personality test results, your vocab assignment, your quiz, okay? I have your AP notebook stuff. I think I'm missing one in there. Yeah, your lab, your vocab, and your quiz, yeah, okay? So if you have any questions, again, make sure you go to Canvas, click on the assignment link for all the assignments that are due. And then the lab is on the announcement page, okay? Don't forget the Scavenger Hunt. I actually had a student who has figured out my character match results. So I think this team or this is very much on their way to solving that. So that's going to be a big bonus for them and for the class that they attend. So definitely it can be done, especially if once you take your results, because some of you, again, are very similar. We have very similar personalities, so that's a big hint there for you, which I'm responding. I'm really enjoying reading your personality results, so that's pretty fun, okay? All right, if you want to get out your AP learning targets for chapter 18, we're going to do 4, 5, and 6 today, all right? And some of the information that we covered today will also weave back into what we covered yesterday in learning targets 1, 2, and 3, okay? All right. So AP learning target number 4, basically says, who are key figures in attitude formation? And the individual that they want you to know there, who we have already covered and who should already be in your AP notebook, is Dr. Leon Festinger. And he is the psychologist who discovered the very famous cognitive dissonance theory. So if you remember, in chapter 12, we actually talked about cognitive dissonance as being a pretty big motivator. And we included Dr. Festinger's name in our names section of our AP notebook. So it should already be there with cognitive dissonance. So this should be kind of a review. Now, one interesting thing I do want you to know is that Festinger was a student under Lewin. Okay, so Kurt Lewin, who's the father of modern social psychology, was a Gestalt psychologist. Most of these famous names have all a connection back to Lewin, and Festinger has probably one of the most closest in chronological connections to Lewin. So definitely that huge social psych background. And again, cognitive dissonance is a bad feeling. It's an equilibrium that we experience when our beliefs or our attitudes don't match our actions, okay? So we are then motivated to get out of that state because it's not comfortable. Some people say it's a need, it's a drive. It's not psychologically healthy, we know that, to stay in that state. So we want our attitudes and our beliefs and our behavior to be in alignment, if you will. So attitude formation comes from cognitive dissonance, in that I'm going to bring my attitude in alignment with my actions, okay? Even if I have to change it, all right? So again, we talked about when I'm in cognitive dissonance, the easiest thing for me to do is change my beliefs or my attitude. It's harder to change my actions. And obviously, I think human nature, we don't do that as well, okay? So the easiest thing is to change my attitude. So we talked about, again, if I smoke and I know it's unhealthy and I know it's going to kill me, I'm in cognitive dissonance, right? I've got 2 options: change my attitude about smoking or stop smoking. And most of the time, people are going to change their attitude, okay, their belief about it. So our attitude formation is directly linked to cognitive dissonance, right? And our actions and our behaviors, okay? All right, so hopefully that's a review, okay? AP learning target number 5, just asked, give me some key concepts of attitude and persuasion. Cognitive dissonance answers this one as well. It's for attitude, okay? So we're good there. Now, persuasion, basically, and seniors, you can all relate to this as you kind of went through this. If you've also made any type of major purchase, you can relate to this. If you've ever tried to persuade somebody, whether it be speech class or somebody to go on a date with you, or whatever, you've used these methods. So we have a very famous model called the elaboration likelihood model of persuasion. So when I'm trying to persuade, even possibly change somebody's attitude, there's two ways to do that in this theory. Okay, the central route to persuasion is actually the most direct route and deals with the most significant parts of persuasion. Okay, so I'm going to use the example of seniors choosing which college you're going to attend. So you're going to have to, through that process, persuade yourself, right, that you have made the right decision. Then it's a peripheral route to persuasion. Okay, now, those of you who just really haven't made your decision yet and have really just struggled and mulled things over and over, it's probably central route. Okay, and you might get tired of that and then just go to something very easy to make the decision. Okay. Now, if you've ever bought anything or dealt with a salesperson, you'll notice that they're going to try to persuade you to whatever it is. They're generally going to start with the peripheral route to persuasion, kind of just talk about superficial things to see if they can get you to make a quick decision based on outlying factors, superficial factors. But if you don't bite there, if you're very contemplative, then they'll engage with you in the central route to persuasion, which is then, okay, let's get down, what are the important factors that you want in a new car, a new phone, a computer, or whatever. And then they'll go here. Okay. All right. So focuses on the central focus aspects, key elements to persuade, takes time, weighs the costs. This one is a much quicker route to persuasion, just like using the superficial outlying aspects of it. Okay. All right. So again, if you get if your friends are trying to persuade you to do something and they persuade you just on the fun, it's going to be fun, let's just do it, and you make it real quick, boom, they got you right here. Okay, you're going to be persuaded here. But if you need more time, you want to think about it, let's contemplate a little bit more, then it's central route. Okay. All right. And again, this is from the elaboration likelihood model of persuasion. Okay. Number 6, key figures in conformity, compliance, and obedience. Okay. And this is where we're getting into some really good stuff. Not to say that cognitive dissonance is not. But again, if you go to your chapter 18 assignment link on Canvas, you're going to see I've got videos. All right. And then also this is my persuasion. Okay. And I'm going to use, most of them are controversial, and most of them you probably won't believe the results and how they were done, but they were done, and they're all in the book with some historical photos. And a lot of the videos actually use archival footage of the actual studies that take place. So they're black and white footage in the videos, which are just really iconic and huge and historical, not only to psychology, but just to all of science, especially Milgram Study is linked in the top 5 studies ever performed. So what we've got is we got Solomon Asch, Stanley Milgram, and Philip Zimbardo, all of which were a part of your scavenger hunt for chapter 18 of social psych. So you should have some background on them. Okay, so we'll start with conformity is Solomon Asch, right? So he performed the very famous line study. Zoom this in here real quick. Okay, in which basically you see your 3 lines. You got 1, 2, 3, and the example. And you're going to be asked to tell me which of the standard lines, 1, 2, and 3, best represents the example line. Okay. All right. Now, before you answer, let me tell you how the study was done. So you're going to walk into a room, and there's 5 other people seated at this table. Okay. And you're going to take your seat right before the last person. So there are 4 people before you and 1 person after you. All right. And you're going to go down in order. They're going to look at the same thing as you are and be asked the same thing I just asked you. But something odd happens. The first person picks line 2. Second person agrees with him. Third person agrees. Fourth person agrees. And then it gets to you. And you're gonna immediately be put in cognitive dissonance because it's not, and you're gonna be doubting yourself, like, what have I missed? And so what they found is 70% of the time you're gonna go ahead and agree with the 4 people before you, even if you know it's wrong. And then the person right after you is also gonna agree with the majority. He's gonna say line 2, okay? Now, studies show that in that situation, 70% of the participants, the other 5 are plants, okay? They're already in the room seated, and they're told to pick line 2. And they're told to be unanimous, okay? So you're the only participant in the study. Everybody else disagrees with you, and they're unanimous. 70% of the time you're going to conform, okay? And that's what Ash's study found. And also, you're going to feel better about conforming even if you know it's the wrong answer. And those that stood out and did not conform said that they felt worse about it. And they would have felt better if they just did conform, okay? So, simple study, world famous. And again, this is in the heels of an attempt to attribute, remember, social attribution, to explain, to answer the question of why of the Holocaust, of World War II. And what they found is that people conform if certain factors involving a situation are in place. So again, it's not about the individual, it's about the situation. And does it have certain components or elements? Okay, and those are listed in your book and you need to know them. But a couple of them are, the group has to be 3 or more, the group has to be unanimous, the group has to be kind of exemplified, if you will, or that they need to be a group that you want to associate with, okay, and other things. Okay, there are also factors that indicate that you are less likely to conform. So pretty big. Okay, but again, this study shows that Americans would conform just like the Germans did, okay, or the Nazis, or people did to the Nazi party. Okay, Stanley Milgram did obedience, okay, and he did the famous experiment. And I'll get to the 66% here in just a minute, okay. But Milgram then wanted to see, would Americans blindly obey orders even though they knew they were wrong, or they went against their morals, just like was going on in Nazi Germany. So what he did is he created a study. This one is amazing. This one, it really can't be replicated exactly because it violates a lot of ethical concerns, although there is actually a video. If you type in Milgram kinds of stuff, movies, this one was made into a movie, I think recently, it's 2011, or it might be 2015 on this one. And lots of replications. There's a great one, I think, in 2013 or 11 that the UK did, which was amazing. And they stuck as close to Milgram's original study as I've seen. But basically what he wanted to do is, would Americans blindly shock somebody just because they were told to do so? So he created this random shock generator, okay, which was fake, but it had all the buttons, lights, made noise, and it went from, like 15 volts to 450 volts. Each step was labeled. When you got to 450, it was labeled with XXX down. Okay, and before that, it was labeled, harmful, I think deadly. Okay, so you walk into a room, you are paid to be a part of the study, and there's already somebody there sitting. That person is a plant. Okay, but you don't know that. You sit by each other and you both talk about how you're being paid to do. The teacher comes in and says, okay, the study needs a learner and a teacher, and you're going to be randomly assigned to which one you are. So he hands just a bowl and you reach in and grab a paper. Okay, now I, being the subject, am always going to be the teacher. The learner is the plant. Okay, so it looks like it's random, but it's not. We take the plant back, the learner back to his separate room, and they hook him up to a shock generator. Okay, that actually is fake, but what that does deliver a low 15-volt shock. So what they do is they let the real subject, the teacher, experience the shock so that it kind of deceives them. And then they hook the person up, okay, the plant up. Then they take the teacher, you, into your room. At that point, the learner disconnects himself from the shock machine. He doesn't even need to be there and just kind of sits there. You are then sitting in front of the shock generator. And again, you've been told that the study is on learning and memory, and that you're going to help them get results on the best way to help people learn and remember. So you're going to ask questions. The person in the other room, who is a player, is then going to send the answer in based on a 1, 2, 3, 4. If the answer is correct, you go to the next one. If the answer is not, then you hit a shock. You have to announce the voltage that you're giving the person, and you move up. And for each incorrect answer, you're going to keep moving up. Now, keep in mind, again, nobody's being shocked. It's all deception, but the teacher does not know that, okay? Now, to test the obedience, in the same room with the teacher is a researcher who wears a lab coat, and he operates on a skit. He reads a skit. Anytime that the subject expresses concern that they might want to stop, They just read a script that basically says the experiment requires that you continue. Please continue, teacher. Okay. On the other side, they're playing a recording, a pre-recorded thing of the learner screaming that they're in pain later on, silent. I think once they get to 350 volts, they go silent to kind of initiate that they might have passed out or they might have indeed died. They complain about their heart, but all that's on a video. And so what they did is with that, they wanted to see how high people would go on the shock generator, just simply because they were being told to. Now, they sent out a survey before the study, and I think to professionals, and what they said is like only 1% would actually go to 450, and those would be the sadists or sociopaths, whatever. The results of the first study are 66% of the subjects shocked the individual all the way up to the 450 volts, just because they were being told to by somebody in a uniform. Okay. Now, that's not to say that they didn't like it. And if you watch the original footage, they're having stress reactions. They're having tics. They are a massive conflict with themselves because their behavior does not align with their attitude or their beliefs, but they still did it. And the UK has a really great example. This guy, he does it. He expresses concern all the way through, and he goes all the way to 450 volts, and he just puts his head down in his hands and he starts to cry. Like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Now the person who's the plant immediately comes in and says, look, you didn't shock me. I'm fine. It was all deception. And that was a little bit comforting, but you could still tell that he was in massive cognitive dissonance. He could not understand what he had just done and why he had just blindly obeyed. Okay. But you kind of can see this in the Holocaust. Why do people blindly obey? Well, there's a lot of factors. Okay? In your book, you're going to find it. Okay. Factors that increase our likelihood to obey. Factors that decrease our likelihood to obey. Okay, but if the person belongs to a prestigious institution, Yale University here, they're wearing a uniform. Okay, they talk in a way that we ascribe to them knowledge, authority, that type of thing. If nobody else disobeys, it's just one-on-one. Then all those factors. Now there are many different replications of Milgram's study that show you that it is obedience and that those factors do have to be in play. Not everybody obeyed, but over 2/3 did, which is still pretty amazing. Okay. All right. And the last one is Philip Zimbardo's prison study, Stanford prison experiment, which he actually hosts the first video, which is The Power of the Situation. That's Zimbardo is actually the host of that video. That video goes through all of these studies. And basically in 40 minutes teaches you all of chapter 18, and it has many archival footage of the war, Holocaust, but also of all these studies. And then he also hosts the little video on Ash conformity study. Okay, so he did compliance, but also his study dealt with, do we conform to a role? If we are given a uniform or given a job, how much do we conform to that? And then foot in the door, which is basically means that, most of the time we don't conform all at once. We kind of take steps there. It takes time for us to get there. Okay. Now, what they did here at Stanford University is basically he converted the lower level of the psychology department into a prison. I believe that I think actually just still a part of that original study is there. It's kind of like a museum. And then what he did is he randomly selects students to be a part of this, actually arrested from their dorm rooms, and they were brought in, and they were immediately given kind of a lowly status, right? They were basically given a gown to wear, they were given a number, and they were only referred to as their number, and they were given a cap. So they were given kind of a uniform and a role. The guards then were also, so the prisoners actually stayed in the bottom level of the psych department for 24 hours in their cells. They got out for exercise and to eat and so on and so forth. The guards only worked 8 hours. Okay. They also had a uniform. It was a khaki shirt. They wore sunglasses and they had a stick. All right. And it was planned for 2 weeks. And what Zimbardo wanted to see is, would these students conform completely to their role? In essence, lose their identity? Would they comply with everything that was required of them because of their role? Okay. And how fast would it take? Okay. Now, what he found out is the study had to actually be stopped because the prisoners were conforming to their roles and developing anxiety and stress-related illnesses. They were becoming withdrawn, quiet. They would move, catatonic in some cases. And the guards were becoming pretty hostile and aggressive. And nobody was hurt, even though I think in the video, in the 2011 film that I show you, nobody was hurt. But it had to be stopped because they were so quickly conforming to their roles and becoming compliant with things that just were not acceptable, which kind of actually it kind of shocked all of these studies, shocked the entire world, but especially Americans about. And this actually, Zimbardo was not prepared for how fast they would conform and comply to their roles and just lose their sense of identity within it. Actually had to be a lot of follow-up action taken because of the study. There had to be interventions and therapy with the guards and prisoners, because then you know that you had to go to class with these classmates that maybe one was a brutal guard. So they actually had to do a lot of follow-up with that one. And that one did violate ethical concerns as well, and could not be done. So in Zimbardo, it's interesting to hear Zimbardo talking about his own study, but that happens on a couple of the videos. All right, so these are the big three. They are part of your scavenger hunt. Again, I have videos to all of these studies, and then I would encourage you, I'd persuade you, okay, for knowledge, okay, but also because it's really cool. That would be my peripheral right. Coolness and knowledge would be central route. But when you read the book, it feels like you're just kind of reading like TV shows, summaries, okay, which are kind of what the videos are. All right. So make sure that you go to Canvas. Okay. The videos are posted there under the assignment link. And then, I would read the text based on these studies because they do give you some fascinating information. And I had a student ask a wonderful question yesterday during the live feed is, how can social psychology explain the Holocaust and what happened? How can the situation help us understand that? Because it was atrocious. These begin to show you, okay, exactly. It's not one thing about the situation, but it's several factors about the situation that kind of converged that made that. Okay, all right, I got a question here. Miss Lauren, how are you, Lauren? Yes. So Lauren asked, can I do the chapter 15 vocab assignment with a partner? Yes. And you can also do the chapter 15 quiz with a partner as well. So yeah, good question. Tell your sister hi, Lauren. Okay, any other questions? Trying to see how many people are in the live feed. Are we good? Okay. All right. So learning target 4, 5, and 6. Okay. Check the assignment link for chapter 18. Again, all you have is the lab, which includes the scavenger hunt, but then you have some great videos there for you to watch of these historical studies and research done. And we'll still talk about some more. We have some more to go. Also, Kurt Lewin's study is in there as well. And that's an